Okay. Hello, friends. It's so nice to see everyone's faces. Let me switch the view so I can see everybody because it's been a while. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Before we get started, let me just give a welcome. First of all, I am Leighellen of Mama Leighellens Book Nook, and this is Missy.
Hi, friends. I'm Missy of Big Sky Books.
And we are the hosts of Book Friends Book Club. So if this is your first time, welcome. We're so thankful to have you here. And if you're a regular, we love having you back. So if you are new, the way this works is Missy and I have questions for our author, and we kind of do this for about 20 minutes, and then we open it up to all of you. Do you have questions? So some of you have submitted questions, and we'll ask, and we will unmute you at that time. There also is, let me open it. There's also a chat off to the side. So if you have questions, you can pop in there and ask a question. And then I guess that's it. I hope that explains it. If you have any questions, let us know at any point. So let's get started. It looks like poor Lynda's muted. So let's unmute Lynda first of all. So first we want to welcome Lynda Cohen Loigman. That is who is joining us tonight.
Hi, everybody.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good. I just had like a really long drive back from Boston where I hit a lot of traffic. It's supposed to be like a 3-hour drive, but it was more like a 4.5-hour drive.
Oh no. I was
But
so
things were starting a little bit later. Like I was
Right.
like I left there and I was like talking to my husband and I was like, but what if there's some crazy traffic? Like I needed to leave myself a lot of time. So anyway,
I'm so thankful that you still chose to hang out with us after the crazy long
course.
had.
Are you kidding? Of course. Of
Do
course.
you have a cup of coffee or a glass of wine or something?
I have a cup of tea.
Oh, there we go.
Delightful.
What mug is that? Is that a local bookstore? That looks fun.
Leighellen, it's from a fudge shop.
Even better.
One cannot sustain oneself on books alone. It's from a fudge shop on Martha's Vineyard.
Oh, Lynda, you are my kind of woman.
I mean, come on.
I love it. I want fudge now. Okay, although I do have to admit, while we were loading, I was pounding down an ice cream bar for dinner.
Oh,
I was like,
nice.
I don't have time to
Very
eat dinner,
nice.
but
Yeah.
I can have some ice cream.
Yep.
Um,
I think this month, because I've been traveling a lot, I have eaten more. Like I like to make myself toast. I like with, avocado and then like a fried egg or, like an over hard egg, whatever. I think I've
Yes.
eaten that. So I don't think I'm going to be able to eat it after this book tour part is over. Like I'm never going to be able to eat it again because I've eaten it over and over.
That became your favorite, and then you're like, that's your go-to now. Oh no, did she freeze on us?
I think she did.
Oh no. Is everyone else moving okay? It looks like everyone else
I
is good.
think so.
Lynda, you froze on us. Oh, you dropped.
Lost her.
All right. Well, hi everyone. This
Or what happened there. I'm not
there
sure
she
what
is.
happened.
Oh,
Sorry.
she's back. Yay. Okay.
Sorry about that. I don't know
No,
what's happened. Something is wonky in my house today with my internet. Sorry.
it's all right. Are you on your Wi-Fi?
I'm gonna go downstairs because I feel like maybe in my office it's a little, you guys are gonna get a tour of my house now. I'm gonna go
Great. I
walk
see books on a
downstairs.
bookshelf, so I'm very happy with the
Um,
bookshelves I see in the background.
oh, this isn't
Where'd she
good.
go?
You're all right. She just froze a little again. She'll hop back on. Everyone, we always know the first 5 minutes of these Zooms can be wonka-donk. Let me all see who's in here while we're waiting for her to hop back.
I'm going, can you hear me now?
Yep, I can hear you. You're doing
Yeah,
great.
I
We're
think
all
there's
just hanging
something,
out.
I noticed this in my house when I got home. My Wi-Fi doesn't seem to want to work as well today. I don't know why, but I'm going to go down to my kitchen and sit with you in my kitchen.
That sounds great.
Maybe that'll work better. Okay.
Do you still have fudge left? You can show us.
No, I have no. I just have the mugs. I don't actually have any fudge. I wish I had fudge, but I don't have any fudge.
So, what's your favorite type of fudge?
Oh, I like the kind with the marshmallows, like the Rocky Road
Oh,
fudge.
the Rocky Road.
Mm.
Right on.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, while we're setting up, tell us what your favorite fudge flavor is in the chat box, and then I can see who's all here. You know what? I like the weird one that's like it has a funny name and I'm not going to be able to remember
Panouche.
it.
The panouche.
Panouche, yes, that's like maple.
Yeah, I like that too.
I
It's
love
like
that one.
yeah, I like that one too.
And I feel like you can't find it everywhere. I always find it on the East Coast. Like when I'm on
Yeah.
Nantucket or on Cape Cod, I find it.
Yeah.
But like West Coast is like, what are you
Yeah.
looking for? I'm like, it's
Yeah.
called, and they're like pistachio. I'm like, no, it's like
Yeah. Yeah.
pinoche.
Yeah. I don't know what that word is. I don't know what that means,
I
but
don't know.
yeah.
Oh, look at this chocolate caramel, peanut butter fudge, maple. Yeah, the peanut
Yeah.
butter.
I'm peanut butter too because I trick myself like it's protein, like it's
Oh,
healthy,
oh, it's healthy fudge because it's
Yeah,
peanut.
it's healthy.
Yeah. That's what my husband likes too. He loves peanut butter fudge.
That's yummy. Yeah, the peanut butter and chocolate one is a good combo.
Yep. Yeah.
Fudge with pecans. Oh, yeah. You guys look at all the different flavors. I love us. Oh, mint chocolate. I don't think I've ever had mint chocolate fudge.
Now
That's
I need like a flight, where you just get
right.
a little nibble
Right. We
of
need
each
Leslie on
one.
here to do a flight.
Yeah.
All
We
right.
could
So
get
Get mint
Linda,
chocolate at Buc-ee's. Leighellen.
what?
The mint chocolate at Buc-ee's is good.
Oh, hey, I have that here.
I know. That's what I'm telling you.
All right. So Linda, it sounds like you have good Wi-Fi, so we can.
I hope. Let's hope.
We'll good. We're talking fudge. What could be better?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so tell everyone, let's start with you. Just tell everyone,
Sure.
who you are and if
Yeah.
this is their first book of yours, like what your background
Yeah.
is, what you've written
Yeah.
so far, that kind of thing.
Of course. So, the tagline for this book is it's never too late for new beginnings. Like when you open up the book, it says that. And that is sort of like it's funny that that's what they chose, the marketing people, because that's like my writing career. This
Aw.
is my second act kind of thing. And I am 56. I just turned 56 a few weeks ago. And I was a lawyer for like 10 years, and I always hated it. I never wanted to be a lawyer. And when my daughter was 6 months old, I thought of an idea for a book. And it was sort of inspired by my mom's childhood family home in Brooklyn. She lived in a two-family house, and that book was called The Two-Family House. Actually, I tried for a really
Very
long
creative.
yeah, I tried to come up with like, so I wrote, well, I thought of it when she was 6 months old. It took me like 12 years before I ever started to write it. And my mom had died and very young, and I was like about to turn 40. And I just felt like if I didn't start trying to write it, I would never do that. So I started writing, I started taking a class, and it took me 5 years to write that book. But the funny thing was, so I finally I met this agent, and she wanted, she had a few pages, and she wanted the full manuscript. And it's like a big deal when an agent asks you for a full manuscript.
Yeah.
And so I told her I wanted to send it. I just wanted, I needed a few weeks to edit, to shape it up a little bit. And I tried so hard to think of a different, super sophisticated title instead of The Two-Family House. So I came up with this other title, and she wrote me back, she called me actually the next day and said she read the whole thing and she wanted to represent me. It was like this really fantastic day. But she's like, the only thing is we need to change the title. Because I came up with this, and I was like, well, she said, do you have any other titles? And I said, my working
Family
title is
House?
The Two-Family House. And she's like, that's perfect. And that's what it ended up being called. So that was funny. Sometimes I guess simple is best.
That's
So
right.
so The Love Elixir of Augusta is my fourth book. And my first two books, so The Two-Family House was like a family saga. It was multi-generational, and it was like post-war Brooklyn in the 1950s and 60s. And I really love that book. And then my second book, I mean, I love all my books, but my second book was very solidly historical fiction because it was a home front World War II story, but it wasn't about the war at all. It was about these two sisters who moved from Brooklyn to Springfield, Massachusetts, because that was the trajectory that my family took. And that was, those two books were sort of more serious. And then I wrote The Matchmaker's Gift, which was a lighter, more joyful kind of feel-good read with a little magical realism and a little romance. And then Love Elixir is that also. It's a little more joyful. It's a little more just playful and has the romance stuff in it a little bit, and the magical realism and everything. So that's sort of was a little bit of a pivot, but it's still very solidly historical, I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know. I'm so grateful because as I said, I never really felt comfortable being a lawyer, and I really feel so lucky because I feel like I'm doing the thing I'm supposed to do now. And I truly never thought I would have that professionally.
What made you finally pivot and give yourself the opportunity to become a writer, to really
I
do?
mean, at first it was just like I have this one story and I have to write it down and I have to like just get it out. Because it was truly like you know how like you take a walk with your friends, like, like I walk with my friends a lot. I
Yeah.
would tell everybody this story. Like they all knew it. My husband knew it. Like I was constantly like coming up with new things, but I never wrote it. But over a decade, I was thinking of it and telling people about it. And sometimes people would say like, "Tell me what else is going on in that story." Like
Right.
it
You
was
should write this
like a
down.
like
Yeah.
it was like a radio program or something, like I was telling it. Yeah. And then when I started taking the class, I figured out how to write. I did not know how to write really, but I think some of it you can definitely work on. And some of it I think is just a sense of story
Mm.
that we all have. I feel like everybody has one good story in them. Like I feel like everyone could write one book. Like everyone should have 15 minutes of fame. Everyone has definitely one story that they feel like they need to get out of them or tell, and that was mine. And so then I just didn't know if I would have any more. Like I thought,
Right.
well, I did it once, but can I do it again? So that was the challenge. And now I just feel like I have story ideas all the time. And I just
Oh, how
like
fun.
total, yeah, but they wouldn't all work. So I have to like, I have to shut them off. I have to shut off my head.
Oh.
I think I drive my family crazy because, like we'll be walking along and you see, a mother and a daughter somewhere and they're having like a fight and I'm like, what if there was a book about blah blah blah? And they're like, enough. Can you stop like making up stories about like every person that you see,
Gosh, I do that all the
Very
time.
annoying.
Like when
It's
I'm
like
in
a
a
game.
restaurant and you see like a couple and you're like, oh, what are they talking about?
Yep, yep, totally. Yeah. I always say if you're in the grocery store and like you feel like someone is like eavesdropping on your conversation, chances are it's a writer.
Picking up ideas.
Yeah.
Um, well, tonight we're going to talk about The Love Elixir of Augusta Stern. We all loved this book. It's so, like you said, joyful, hopeful, a little touch magical. Um, so let's talk about this. Missy, do you want to kick us off with
Yeah, let's dive in. So I love reading author's notes. Your author note was spectacular. I loved learning that this was a story from your husband's great grandmother. And
Yeah.
then I love the additional information about how you had moved your father to a retirement community. So it's sort of like, okay, those are the two timelines. So just tell us a little more about how this story came to be.
Yeah. So my husband's great grandmother graduated from pharmacy school in 1921, and her nickname was Goldie. Well, but I thought that was her name actually. I always thought her name was Goldie, and it wasn't until I started researching Fordham Pharmacy College because like in your families, people tell you that people did things or they went to places for school or they had certain jobs, and then it's not even true. Like like families like
Right.
embellish. So I had to go. I wanted to research. And when I researched her and found, the people in her class and everything, I found out that her real name was Augusta. And they had always called her Goldie. So I thought that was fascinating. And I love that name. I always love that name. So that was like the setting. I always knew like a pharmacy setting in the 1920s in New York would be a fantastic place to just sort of explore magical realism. You have the rooms with all the powders and the potions and all of those things. And the 1920s was a great time period because it was prohibition and pharmacies were such interesting places during prohibition because they were the only places, well, maybe not the only, but one of the few places where you could sell alcohol legally because
Right.
you could get a prescription for whiskey, a pint of whiskey every 10 days for medicinal purposes.
That's so wild to think
Yeah.
about.
I thought that
Yeah,
was
there
so
were these, yeah, it's
fascinating reading it
crazy.
when it was like, and you could prescribe whiskey. I was like, prescribe
Yep.
whiskey.
Yep. Yeah, totally. So that made it like just interesting. So it was like ripe for gangsters like taking over and strong arming the pharmacy, people owning pharmacies. So that was interesting. And then there was this whole like in the book, Augusta's mother, when the book opens, Augusta's mother has died and she dies of diabetes, which she dies a year before insulin is made available. And so I really wanted to explore that because as writers, we like to torture our characters. And I knew that like torturing Solomon Stern, what is more torture than like having every medicine at your disposal, except the one thing that will cure your wife?
Ugh.
And then it comes out a year later, so and then eventually, of course, his pharmacy will carry it. But that whole pharmacy part was one aspect. And then I was moving this when I was starting to think about my next book, I was moving my dad to assisted living. He had been ill and he couldn't live on his own anymore. And it was such a hard time. And the thing that really like got us all through it was just the fact that my dad was such a social person.
Mm.
And like I said before, I mentioned my mom died young. She was 63 and my dad had like 15 years of dating after she passed away before he died. He was 6 years older than her, but he dated a lot of women and he was always like looking for love. And literally truly up until the day he died, he was looking for love and companionship. And so I used to sit with him. He never liked, when I would visit him, he never wanted to be like in his room with
Mhm.
visiting just us. He liked to be where the action was. Like he had FOMO, like in a big way all the time. He like wanted to be sitting in the lobby outside the dining room. And I always say like that was like a middle school cafeteria, that little area. And like everyone would gather there and talk and gossip. And my dad was like always there, and there were women and there were men too, but not as many men. And like when I sat there, that was where the characters really came to me, because it's so easy to be dismissive of elderly people when they're, you know, with a walk. I mean, my dad had a walker and an enlarged prostate, and he was just like a mess, but he didn't care. He didn't think that that should prevent him from finding somebody. And it's so easy, I think, to dismiss older people and to not think that they have all the same emotions we have. But of
Mhm.
course, you know, age just doesn't change that. And we are who we are. And it was a special thing to sit there. I feel really grateful that I was able to do that, and those people were just so inspiring. There was one man, we called him the 100-year-old man, because he had turned 100 the day before I met him. He had just turned 100, and he every time I would visit my dad, he would take the same pictures out of his wallet to show them to me.
Mm.
And when I met him, his wife had died 6 months before. She was
Oh.
close to 100 herself, and they had been married for 70 years.
Oh, wow.
And he told me it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough time, because he
Oh.
never felt old.
Right.
He never felt like their love wasn't valid, or it was, and that was just a beautiful thing. So
Mm.
that like impacted me a lot when I was writing this story.
I love that. Missy and I, we always joke like some of our favorite stories are always with octogenarians. We are very drawn to stories with
Mhm.
older characters. And I mean, Augusta had all of the, personality traits we love, the little bit salty, a little bit of spicy, independent. So,
Mhm.
let's just kind of dig into that a little. When you were writing her, how different was it for you to write an older woman, and were there certain traits you wanted to make sure you instilled in her, and like was it a different writing process to write someone her age?
No, it wasn't different. I mean, I think older characters are in some ways easier to write for me. Like they have a lot of wisdom. And
Mm.
so it feels very like it feels kind of rich. Like you can and it's also like you can kind of have them say anything. Like you don't but, a lot of times older people don't have a filter, and so I feel
Yeah.
very like, unfiltered when I'm writing her. Um and of course
I'm
this is
so
fun
looking
because
forward to being 80.
yeah, exactly. And saying whatever you want, right? You don't have to like, and eating all the fudge we want. We're just going to sit and eat fudge and just talk,
For
trash. That's
sure.
what we're going to do. Um, I think like I loved writing about her young and old. Like I
Mhm.
was not interested in the middle of her life at all, cuz like I'm in the middle. I think the middle is like boring. Like I think it was fun to write her young and
Mhm.
see all the mistakes she made, and then fun to write her as an older character to see how all the mistakes play out, how she pays for those mistakes, how those mistakes impact her. Um,
Mhm.
I don't know. I loved writing her. And of
Yeah.
course, my grandmother was a very interesting and super strong and salty older woman. And so her voice was in my head a lot of
Mm.
Ugh, I love her.
the time. We
Yeah.
all just kind of, I also feel like we all I mean, I lost my mother young, so like I just have this like craving for like a maternal figure all the time, like and
Mhm.
my grandmother outlived my mother. I had my grandmother for a longer time than I had my mom. And I think we just all kind of want that like figure in our life, especially being the age that I am. Like I wish sometimes when it's just too much responsibility. I just want to be like 5 years old again. I'm just like, I just want someone to take care of me. Like, why can't I just have somebody just like be my mommy? Like, I would like that a lot, like it would be nice sometimes.
I
So
feel
I think there's something fun about writing an older person who could be that for you.
Yeah, and I think a lot of, I mean, I'll speak to myself. This generation, I feel like I crave that wisdom and strength that maybe we don't have as much because the world, the way that we are now living across the country, working remotely, or, maybe moved outside. Back in the day, we all lived in the same town. Like my parents
Yeah.
lived down the street from their parents when they
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
married, and
Yeah.
holidays, everyone all got together. And I look at my family, and my sons are in three different states, and and
Yeah.
my parents are in a different state than that, and
Yeah.
so you don't have that down the street wisdom. And so
Yeah.
that might be part of why we crave these kind of stories, because
I think you're right. Yeah.
we
I
miss
really
that.
think that's true for sure.
So speaking of craving wisdom, let's talk about Esther. I really loved Esther, and I just thought, like, gosh, when Augusta and Bess, they were grieving, it was like they just needed a woman in their life.
Yeah.
Like it was just like it's what they needed. So, is she based on someone that you in your family, or is she just you just felt like she was needed in the story?
She's just an invention, She's Esther was a really interesting and fun character to write. And of course, she is her own strong, older woman.
Mm-hmm.
She's not the main character, but she's a pretty big character in the book. Um, she's a little bit like Mary Poppins, like she goes where she's needed.
Yeah.
She goes from family to family. She's an immigrant. She has the accent, but she speaks perfect English because she's been in this country a long time, but she doesn't have resources. So she just goes where there's room or where there's a need. And she just kind of does that, whatever the family needs her to do. And I think it would be very easy if you were in that position to not have this sort of dignity that she has, to just feel like you're a charity case, but she doesn't feel that way. She comes in and she sort of takes over. And the girls do need her, but Augusta's very, she doesn't appreciate her at all for a long time. She doesn't like that she has changed a couple things in the apartment.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't like that she's given Bess, permission to wear her mother's old dresses. She doesn't like that she's calling her Goldie. That's the nickname. Esther's the one who gives her that nickname. There's just change, and she's not quite ready for change. And it takes her a long while to warm up to Esther. And of course, then she's sharing a room with her also. That's hard.
Right.
And it really takes her a while to appreciate her. And eventually she does. Um, because Esther has a really good heart, even if she is a little abrasive sometimes. She's Esther is always paying attention. She sees everything and she sees everyone and she sees everyone's feelings. She's empathetic. She knows she doesn't need to help out when Irving is sick, but she sees how upset this young girl is. Her friend is so ill, and she says, "I'll make him some soup." She jumps in when she has to, and she's just she's nobody's fool. She's just super fun. She was a super fun character to write.
I loved her. Like I could read a prequel book of just Esther, like where she
Oh,
came
that'd
from,
be
and
fun.
like I loved her. And then I'm a firm believer, chicken soup does cure
Yeah,
all. It just it was a great tie-in.
I'm glad
Okay,
that
so speaking of chicken soup, and
yes.
just all of these, you've got chicken soup, you've got the bread. You've got like,
Yeah.
I want these recipes. Do you have
Yeah.
these recipes? I at the
Um,
end of the book, I like went back and was like, maybe she'll have some of these recipes at
right.
the end. And then I'm like, there aren't recipes. I
Oh
want these
no.
recipes.
I know. I'm like, I don't make such great. I do make chicken soup, but I think it's really like I don't have a recipe. Like you put chicken in a pot and you
That's
fill it with
true.
water and you add like carrots and
But
onions
hers
and
sounded
salt. Like
really good.
I know, I know. I played around with hers, but I don't really have a recipe.
And
Kreplach,
then
which are the
the braided
dumplings.
bread.
Yeah, the challah. Yeah, yeah, that I've made a lot. That I've made. I can give you a recipe for challah if you want.
There we go. Yeah.
That's it's not so hard, and it always comes out really good. Kreplach is like hard because it's like making. I mean, there's something like that in every culture. You know, there's wontons, there's dumplings. You know, there's like that's what it is. It's a soup,
Pierogies.
tortellini, pierogi, all those things. That's what it is. And so you have to make the dough and you have to like, it's very time consuming. So
Mhm.
I've never actually, that's not true. I have made kreplach, but not for years and years and years. Um, and I've made knishes, like little mini knishes, little mini potato
Mm.
knishes, but that's a whole different thing. Those don't go in soup. But making kreplach is not, it's like you need a day. Like
This book made me hungry and it made
I
me
know,
miss
I'm
that
sorry.
though, because like, I part of my heritage, that is what we do at Christmas. Is actually I have to see if my cousin is on. Is she on here? Um, we would make, the aunts and the grandmothers and the like generations, we would host this party once a year. And I just remember the women in the kitchen and
Yeah.
it would take all day, like you
What were
said,
you
but
making?
pierogies and
Oh,
like
yep.
all of the,
Yeah.
it just
Yeah. I
galumpy.
went to I went to a Chinese dumpling party where we all made Chinese dumplings, and that was so fun.
Yeah,
Hmm.
but it is very time consuming. And I think so that's
Yeah.
why some of generationally it's lost, but then you can't get those flavors any other way without it being made a long time. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah. One of my favorite, I really want to write this in a book, this scene in a book one day, but my roommate from law school is Greek and she's my good friend and she would tell me they would have before Christmas they would all get together, all of her aunts, her mother's sisters get together to make baklava and they would
yeah.
and other cookie like Greek cookies.
Mhm.
But they would she would tell me these stories like they would all be there like in the kitchen and it would get hot so they'd all these women would be like taking off their shirts so they'd all be like in their brassieres because they were not like they were like heavy duty brassieres like they'd all be in their brassieres like brushing the the phyllo dough with butter and like
Butter.
I just love that image of like all these like older Greek women like standing there like in their bras like it just cracks me up.
Oh, I love that image also. Because that is that welcoming, come as you
Yeah.
are. We love you as you
Yeah.
are.
Food is love. Food is love. I
Yep,
mean, so it's
100%.
just, yeah.
Yep.
Well, I would not be disappointed if make a little cookbook section on your blog or
Okay. All right. I got to do
recipes.
something. I know. I got to. Well, actually, there's this Instagrammer. Her name is Holly. I love her so much. She has, you guys should all follow her. It's called Book, Cook, Look.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, yes.
And she made this beautiful picture for me on my launch day. She had chicken soup and like she does these beautiful, like it looks like a flat lay, like it's like the book. And then she does the foods. She makes the foods that are in the books, like
Yum.
whatever they might be.
So we
And
need
she's
to
done
go
some
stalk her
amazing
and get that
things.
recipe.
Yes. And I said to her, I like messaged her and I was like, and it was right before Rosh Hashanah. And I was like, I hope you're eating this soup for Rosh Hashanah. Like, and she's like, no, my son, no one's home. I put it in the freezer. Like, but
Although
she's made like all these, she's made like Chinese wontons. I think she's just made all these amazing things. Like, no, like whatever the food is in the book, she makes it.
that is so fun.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. All right, Missy,
Okay.
you're up.
I want to talk about your pivot. You had said, your first two books were more historical. Now you're kind of doing a little cozy magical realism. Like just
Yeah.
like how did that come to be? And for this book, I thought it worked really well. Like I could just the pharmacy, the medicines, I could feel that whole vibe of the 1920s Brooklyn soda shop, what was going on there. So it really worked well for me.
Oh, I'm glad. Yay. Um, so the pivot happened because Well, first of all, in my first book, I had this little magical realism nugget that nobody really noticed except for me. It was like my little gift to myself. But the pivot happened because I was working on another book that was more serious. And then
Mm-hmm.
it was COVID, and my daughter came home from college, and her roommate came along, and we were binge watching Indian matchmaking. And then the roommates told me that her grandmother was, um, an Orthodox matchmaker in Brooklyn, and in the 70s, and she just told me about this, and that was like where the idea for the matchmaker's gift came from. But I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't going to write it yet. I was working on this other I had this other book halfway done. And I talked to my agent like sometime, in that week or whatever. And I said, listen, I think like when I'm done with this book, I think I'm going to write a book about a matchmaker. Like I don't know what it's going to be. And she called me the next day and she said she couldn't stop thinking about that book because it was COVID and we were all so
Mm-hmm.
disconnected and sad. And like a book about a matchmaker is about connections, and
Mm-hmm.
it's joyful, right? It's going to be joyful.
It's just
And
fun. It's just
yeah,
fun. We needed
so that
fun.
exactly. So she said, I'm gonna call your editor. I wanna, get you a 2 book deal and let's go blah blah blah. Let's do this. And then she called me and she said she talked to my editor and she was really excited and they wanted me to write a proposal and they wanted me to do the matchmaker book first
Mm.
and the other book second. Because now I never finished the other book. Like that's half book is staying in a drawer for a while. But it was it was just really interesting. They wanted something happy because it was such a sad, terrible time, and they
Mm-hmm.
felt that people would want to read a book like that. And then, as I was thinking about I was in a panic then because then I had a contract for a book and I had no idea what I was going to write. I didn't know the time period. I had never written anything with romance at all in it before. I didn't want to write a romance. It had to be historical. So I was like, I have research to do. I hope I can find interesting things.
Mhm.
And then as I was researching and thinking, the idea of the matchmaker having a special ability to match
Mm.
came to me. And that was then I was like, I think I'm gonna make a like I said to my editor, like I want to add a little magical realism. And she was like all over it. She was really excited about it.
Mm.
Um, and so I did, and I sent her the first 100 pages because I didn't know if it worked, and I wanted to give her that before I went further. But she liked it, and she was really happy with it. So I was thrilled. I love magic in books. I love fantasy books. I love
Mm-hmm.
all those things. Like I love The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I don't know if you guys have read
Oh,
that, but
oh
I love
yes.
that book. I love every Harry Potter book. I love that was all
Mm-hmm.
those books. So if I could write anything, I would be more magical. But I think it's a really tough skill. I think to do it well, you have to be a very special kind of writer. I don't know if I could do that. I may
Think
try a
you
little.
navigated the space really well because we do have this group tends to read a lot of historical fiction.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when we, say, oh, this book has magical realism, or but they start to go, like, I don't know what
Yeah.
I want.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah,
think
I
the
mean that's the
way that
thing.
it was
Yeah. I don't want to give
connected
up the
well to the
historical.
story.
Yeah,
Right.
I don't want to give up the historical part
Right.
because I love researching and I love setting. I don't really want to set books in the present, but
Yeah.
I like having a little bit of something. So it makes it just makes it kind of fun.
Hmm.
So
Mm-hmm. It was very grounded. I think you found your sweet spot.
Yep.
that's good. I'm glad. I mean, I think also like for this book, it's sort of a question like, does she have magical abilities or
Mm.
is she just like a really good homeopathic healer? Like
Right.
you can sort of decide as the reader which you think she really is. Because
Mhm.
there's nothing so crazy. It's not like someone's arm is broken and she says a spell and it binds back together. It's just
Right.
she helps people with all kinds of advice, both
Well,
practical,
let's
mystical.
unpack that a little more because one
Yeah.
of the things that I think I also really enjoyed about this book was how look at modern medicine, science, but along this parallel of, homeopathic natural medicine and even, beyond that, whether it's, spirituality or,
Yeah.
there's people that believe in the power of prayer and things like that, right? So, just tell us how that I love how you navigated that space in this. I'm kind of honored all of it. So did you have to do a bunch of research for that? Were you surprised at the way that some of those wove together in history? Because I loved that too. And
I mean, I did do a lot of research. I was researching folklore. I feel like this is low. I'm gonna put this thing up. I'm gonna put my computer here. Okay, that's a little better. Folklore, and I mean, I researched all kinds of books about herbalism and all of that. So there was the actual real side, that just like what were some of the herbs and roots and things that people would use if they were looking for all natural remedies for things. So I did research for that, for every one of the ailments in the book. And then there's a prayer that, I think this is true in probably every kind of religion, where during a service, just like a regular Sunday service or a Saturday service or a Friday night service, the whoever the head of the church or the synagogue or whatever it is will say, like, does anyone want to say a prayer for anyone who's ill, like anyone that anybody in the congregation knows who's ill. So in the Jewish tradition, there's a prayer called the Misha Berach prayer, and you'd say that like on a Friday night service, and you just say the name of the person, and it's actually a song. Someone made it into a song, and it's a kind of a pretty famous song in that tradition. And it says like for the renewal of mind and the renewal of body and the renewal of spirit. And it's kind of a beautiful prayer. And I was thinking about that when I was writing about Esther. And then I found somebody's like PhD dissertation about the incantation bowls, which were these bowls that were made like from 600 to 800 AD. And they were found in what's now like Iraq and Iran. And they were buried underneath homes. And inside the bowls were
inscriptions,
prayers or inscriptions or spells or whatever you wanted to call them, incantations. And they were for protection, to protect the people in the homes from bad spirits or anything bad. And so they were buried upside down in the dirt to kind of keep all the bad stuff from getting into the house. The house is here and the bowl is like here. And so that made me want to make Esther's mortar and mortar, the bowl of the mortar, inscribed with something, and have those words be something that was special, that were healing. But of course it's, is it a spell? Is it a prayer? Is it just symbolic? What is it? I don't really want to tell you. It's whatever you kind of think or want it to be. And then she has practical advice too. This woman comes to her and she's not getting pregnant. And the first thing she says is like, first of all, tell your husband not to travel for 3 months. Like, that's just like common sense, right? I mean, there's nothing magical about that. If you want to get pregnant
all the time.
He gotta stay home. And then she like gives a bunch of practical things, like you have to eat breakfast and put a hot water bottle on your stomach. Like the hot water bottle thing I read about, like that was something that doctors would tell you to do, and have these foods, and then also take off your shoes, right? Because she had these really fancy shoes that she wore, and her husband was traveling because she was a shoe salesman. But there's this idea of the evil eye. People get jealous and they can. And that's in every culture. I mean, I know many Italian people who believe in the evil eye. And then it's in just like I don't know, like I just read about it there's a book called The Stone Witch of Florence. There was a whole thing in that book about the evil eye. It's in Greek culture. It's in, it's in Chinese culture. It's in whatever, everywhere. So she's like, don't wear those fancy shoes that people are going to be jealous of, and just don't do that. And, so that would have been the kind of thing that my grandmother would have believed in, for sure. My grandmother would have believed in that.
I even love, just the wisdom of women being passed down generation to generation. In Salem times, right? They would have called that witchcraft, but it's just women's intuition, or, the way that like when she looks at her and knows she's pregnant because she's just got thick hair and healthy skin. We do kind of notice those things about the women that we care about and the women in our circle, and then the things that we pass down, whether it is,
100%. I mean, I think
like I get headaches, and I just remember my grandmother like, oh, squeeze between here. Like, and I always, as soon as I get a headache, one of the first things I do is I start squeezing here, and it's I don't go right to Tylenol or Advil.
Yeah.
I just, well, maybe
Yeah.
just take care of it, So,
Yeah.
and
But I think
so,
it's really true what you're saying about women noticing things. Like I always know like when my daughter, whatever it is, like
yeah,
like your kid is not feeling well and you
you can
know,
sense they're off.
they're off and like whatever it is. I sometimes when my kids were little, I would drive my husband crazy. Like I would say like Charlie's definitely getting a cold. And he'd be like, "What are you talking about? He's fine." And I was like, "Nope, I hear it. Like there's like a little cough back there and like he never coughs. Like there's something. I'm telling you, he's going to wake up tomorrow and he's going to be sick and I got a plan because I don't have childcare." Like I would be like and he's like, he's not even sick. He's fine." And I was like, "Nope, I'm telling you
It's
tomorrow morning
coming,
I'm gonna need like I can't go to work. Like that's it." And I would always
but
be
it
right
probably
because we're
happened,
always
right?
right. Yeah, I would always be right because you know your kids.
Right. So there is something to that
Yeah.
whether, science has not written that down or figured out the formula yet, but it doesn't invalidate it. So I loved that in this story you bring these all together. So,
Thank you.
So I'd like to talk about your writing style, if you're a plotter or a pantser,
hmm.
because in reading your author's note, you noted all of the research you did. You had the corner druggist. You talked about going on an eBay hunt for magazines. You
Mhm.
talked about being in your father's, retirement home, and you talked about the research for the gangster timeline, even or storyline. So, like, what's the method to your madness? Like, do you have all
God.
these different ideas plotted everywhere, or you just kind of fly by the seat of your pants?
Yeah. I'm more of a pantser than a plotter, but um I mean I do my research and I look for my nuggets, right? I look for my like I read this thing on the incantation bowls and I take I take notes in a giant, disgusting, messy document and I throw everything in there. And it has like 100 links to 100 different things, and there's no organization to it at all. And I only kind of go back to it later because I do sort of remember
Mm-hmm.
really important things. And then I try to figure out the voice sort of my characters and the story. Before I start writing, I know the beginning and I know the end. I know certain like dramatic scenes that are going to take place in the middle. There's like I will know. Like when I was researching the matchmaker's gift, I found this photograph of people on the Williamsburg Bridge, and it was on. They were. It's called Tashlich, and it's when you cast your sins into the water, right at the new year, and so you take breadcrumbs and you throw them into the water. And it was a picture of people doing this on the Williamsburg Bridge, which was at that time when they were doing it. It was a brand new bridge, so it was this really old ritual, and they were doing it on this really new structure, and it was this
Mm-hmm.
juxtaposition. It was just so cool, the idea of doing that on the Williamsburg Bridge. So like I had that picture, and I was like, well, I know that that's going to be a scene. Like I know that there's going to be something like that. And so, but it's not usually that literal. It's not usually like I see a picture and I know there's a scene. It's usually like I read about some whatever weird thing and I think, how am I going to fit that in? And I know there's a scene.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is in the beginning, until I have to like set up the whole book. And when I am at about 50 pages, which takes forever, then I start outlining.
Mm.
But I don't really outline. I just start making lists of like the scenes and the chapters, lists like this is going to happen. But it's very loose. And the further I get in the book, the more specific it becomes. So when I'm halfway through the book, then I really can see the shape of the rest of the story and I outline more. And when I have only like 50 pages left of the book, then I have a very, very, very specific outline. But when I start, I don't. It's just in my head mostly, and my crazy document of research notes that I don't know
Mm.
exactly how it will go.
I love that.
That is awesome. Um, I want to know because I thought this was an inspiring book, and I always love books like that like, I feel really good after, and you want to go be a better person and love the people that you have. Um, I want to know who does that for you. Like, do you have an author or a person in your life that just totally inspires you?
I mean, I love Alice Hoffman's books. I
Oh,
find
great
Mhm.
pick.
her, yeah, I find her to be really inspiring.
Also a person that navigates different spaces well. Like she does the historical
Yeah.
fiction and the magical.
And the magical things. And
Ah,
yeah, and like she's had the movie stuff. And
yeah.
yeah, I just think she's amazing. And I love, so many of her books. And
Hmm.
she does different things. They're a lot
Yeah.
of different books. Yeah, but I think like my kids inspire me too, not from a
Oh,
writing perspective, but my kids, I get very inspired by my kids. I feel like they just work really, really hard,
mm.
and so I don't know. I feel
That's
like,
pretty,
yeah,
that's awesome. That's like great
yeah,
as a mama to feel that
yeah,
way about your
yeah,
kiddos.
yeah, I do.
Okay, friends, I know you all have questions and I don't want to hog her time. So, Jackie, are you on here? Jackie has a question for you. Let me see if I can find her. She may have dipped out. Did Jackie dip out? She's at work.
I
Oh,
don't
okay. So,
know if I see her.
okay, she may have dipped out. She's at work. So she wanted
Okay.
to know um about the audio because the audio was phenomenal and we loved the narrator.
Good.
So, did you get to pick this narrator? Like, tell us about the audiobook process.
So, the audiobook narrator is a woman named Gabra Zachman, and when we did the Matchmaker's Gift, I really wanted to have two narrators. Like I wanted to have the young, the Sarah, who's an older woman, and then Abby, who's her granddaughter. I wanted different people
Mm,
because it just seemed like it would be strange not to have different people. Like
yeah.
I don't know. I didn't want the same voice. And so Gabra was one of those narrators. She was the older voice, and I just loved her voice. And then when it came time for this book, they asked me if I wanted to ask her again, um, if we wanted to have her again, and I did. I thought she was just great.
She was
So
phenomenal.
yeah, she was really terrific. I had a super exciting thing happen a couple weeks ago. If you guys know who Patty Murin is?
Uh-huh.
She's
Yes.
like a Broadway actress and a
Yeah.
singer, and she narrates Catherine Center's books.
Yes.
Um,
Mhm.
so it was like my book came out on a Tuesday, and then that Saturday I was up really late, and Patty Murin, like it was like midnight, and I'm like, there's an Instagram story from her, and she was reading my book, and I lost my mind because she was in Frozen on Broadway. She was Anna in Frozen on Broadway, and I saw that like with my daughter, and I just love her. I think she's so great. So she was reading it, and I messaged her like probably a crazy message. I was like, "Oh my God, thank you!" Like, and then and when like the next morning, she messaged me the nicest message, and she said she stayed up to read it, and she said if I ever needed an audiobook narrator, which was so sweet of her to say. That was like
Fun
really,
is
really
that though?
I know that was really, really nice.
That's
I'm sure I mean, she's like an actress, so I'm sure like she's probably expensive for as a narrator. Like, I don't know. So I don't know if they
you're
would
like,
ever
I would love that,
like,
but can
narrator,
we
but
get a discount, like a
right,
friendship
I know. Like,
discount?
I mean, it's not like I don't have, I don't have free reign, but I thought that was I was just so like, I was so touched. I
Yeah.
was so happy. I
Yeah.
don't know. That was like my brush with celebrity.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Okay, who is next? Anissa, do you want to ask your question? Let me find her. There you go. Yep, go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, Linda.
Hi.
I'm curious if when you're writing, do your characters speak to you? And if they do, have they ever changed either like a scene or a whole entire book?
Yeah, I'm no, they like I feel like some authors say things like, my characters just come in and do what they want to do and I don't have any control over them, but I keep a very tight rein on them. Like I know what I want them to do. Like they don't just go do whatever they want in my book. Um, do they speak to me? I mean, I think I speak to them more. Like I tell them what they're doing and I hear them. I hear how they're going to talk, but they're not talking to me. They're talking to whoever they're supposed to be talking to in the story. Like I hear the scenes as if it's like a movie and I'm like, you know, I'm just listening to you know, listening to a movie without watching it, sort of. But I kind of see it too. But but it's not like they talk to me and say like, Lynda, I want to do this in this book. It's more like I'm writing a scene with Fred and Sam, and Fred is talking to Sam in the way that I want to hear Fred talk to Sam. So it's like that, if that makes sense.
I love that. We a lot of times we ask authors and they'll be like, my character told me that I have to do this. Or, they hear the voices so clearly and it makes you all sound a little crazy, but
Yeah,
it
that's
makes for great books.
yeah.
Okay. Jennifer, you have a question.
Hey, I just was wondering if there's any specific scene in this book that was your favorite as you were writing it, like your favorite to write.
Yeah. So I would say my favorite, but also like, okay, there's two.
Mhm.
So one of my favorite scenes is just the opening chapter when she turns around and Irving is there. Like I loved writing that. That one was really, I loved writing it and it was really easy to write. Um, it just kind of came out. The scene that I love the most that was really hard to write was the scene at the restaurant where she almost, where Nathaniel drinks the thing again. Like it's just this super funny. I love the parallel of it happening a second time, and I love the symmetry of it. And I always knew I wanted that. I wanted it to happen in the beginning of the book, and I wanted it to happen, at the end. But that table scene was really hard because everybody's talking, and it's one of those kooky scenes. Like, so I don't know if you guys know Amy Popel or have read her books, but she's
Mhm.
really funny and she's really good at like chaos. Like she writes chaos very well. Um, so I asked her about that scene, and I knew like something was going to happen, like with the table, like, they kind of have this little aside under the table, and Amy helped me with figuring that out because I wasn't sure how that would work. And so she helped me with that. I was thinking a lot when I wrote that scene about, I don't know if you guys are too young to remember Three's Company with Jack
Oh,
Ritter.
yeah.
And like John, he would
Uh,
always go. So his name was Jack, right? And he
I
would
don't want to say
always like
secret
somehow
platforms.
double book himself for dates. And he would go to the Regal Beagle and he would have like a date on one side. And then there'd be like a potted plant and there'd be another date like on the other side. And I was like thinking of that when I was writing that scene. Like they're at the table, but then they're like having conversations under the tablecloth, would be like very Three's Company. So that was like what was in my head
I
when I
need
was
to
trying to
go
write
back and do that scene again now with that
Remember?
in mind.
He was always at the Regal Beagle.
Oh, that is amazing. Oh my gosh.
So
Um, Pam, you have a question about timelines, speaking of all these great scenes.
Yeah, it just was, I was thinking about it when you were talking about your how you write, whether you're a pantser or a plotter. Did you write the 1920s timeline all at once and then write the 1980s? Um, and then the second part of the question is, which one did you have more fun writing? I know I really enjoyed the 1920s, but I too have a similar background to yours. Family in Brooklyn,
yeah,
lots of
that
women
whole
in the
thing.
kitchen.
Yeah. Well, so I write every book in the order that you read it. I can't
Mm,
write it any other way. I feel like I have to experience the book and like the unraveling of the mysteries and the answers like in the same way. I can't, a lot of authors will do what you're saying, write one timeline, then write the other, then cut it up and put it together. And I can't do that. I have to write it the order you read it. But it's slower, but I feel like that in that way I pay a lot more attention to the transitions, and I feel like
mm.
it's smoother because there has to be a real reason for me to stop writing and then go to the other timeline. And um, it's just the way that I can only do it that way. I can't do it any other way. And I mean, I loved both timelines. I think that the 1920s one was easier to write because it was more, I mean, 1980s sadly is historical these days. Like it's classified as historical fiction. But for writing, the 1920s feels more historical, and it's always easy for me to write that. It's just I feel unburdened by any modern things, and it's just I don't know, there's something for some reason that those earlier timelines are always easier for me to write. The 1980s, because I lived then and I really know it more, it feels harder for me to get it right.
Oh.
But I enjoyed it just as much. And it was also, that was the timeline where I tried to be funny. And I'm not usually, I mean, I don't know if I was funny at all, but I tried more to be more funny in that timeline than I ever had before because I just felt like it was just really funny to me. Like that whole idea of Irving and Esther, like, and Augusta, like I really wanted it to be funny. So that was harder for me to write because I had to think about it, and I kept second guessing myself. Like, is this funny? I kept like reading these lines to my husband. Funny? Not funny? Like.
Loved him.
I just
Definitely
I
funny.
have one follow up about that. So, was there any part of your story when you were writing it where George and Bess didn't die and lived with her in the 80s? I thought that was so
Yeah.
sad to have
Yeah.
Bess, her best friend, right?
Yeah. I mean, no, I always knew because I felt like she wouldn't leave New York if Bess was there. And then Bess was, I felt like she had to go kind of be on her own. I had to sort of orphan her. Like she had to go off and have her own adventure. And I felt like if her sister was there, she wouldn't have left her. She would have stayed.
A plot device.
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, it's a book. You have to make it work.
Gotta kill off so many people.
Like Disney. Disney, everyone's orphaned.
Yep.
Marty, you're up.
Hi, so it sounds like that you are a reader. So what, when you were younger, influenced you as a reader?
So, well, my favorite book when I was really little was a book called Half Magic by Edward Eager, which was like a magical, book about these
Uh-huh.
four siblings who find a coin and they don't know that it's magic and it's half magic. And then, like, they wish someone says, like, I wish the cat could talk. And then the cat starts making these weird, like, half talking noises that are really alarming. And then, like, the boy says, like, I wish my friends were home from camp. And then his friends are found, like, on a road, like, halfway between camp and home. So everything is half. And I loved, loved, loved that book. Um, and then I really loved A Tree Grows in Brooklyn because my mom gave me her copy of that book. And that was just always, I romanticized Brooklyn always when I was growing up because I lived in Western Massachusetts in a little small town and I heard all these stories about Brooklyn from my mother and her two sisters. And it always sounded so fascinating. And my town was just so boring. So I loved that book. Um, I don't know. What other books did I love when I was little? I mean, I loved Judy Blume, but we all loved Judy Blume,
We all
all the
love
Judy
Judy
books. They
Blume.
were real like and also Paula Danziger. She wrote some great books that I loved. There was like one called The Cat Ate My Gym Suit. Um, just sort of about a young woman who's just feels like an outsider everywhere, and struggles. I liked all of those all those YA
I have to
books.
show you this is my original Judy.
Oh my
I have
gosh,
it
wow.
from this is a first edition Judy Blume from 1970.
That's amazing.
My favorite book
Wow.
growing up.
Wow, that's so amazing. That's wild.
Her books
Yeah, I
always have
think
an impact on us.
our generation really, like, there's
Yeah.
the humanity. The thing is, when I was young, there were not that many YA books. It wasn't like
No,
now
wasn't a
there's so
genre.
many, no, there's
No,
so many
yeah.
books to help kids deal with their emotions, to deal
Yeah.
with anything at all.
Yeah.
And we just only had Judy. That was it. Like she was the only one.
Yeah, the Hardy Brothers for boys or
Yeah. Yeah, but those were not they weren't
help you
realistic.
emotionally, right?
Yeah, they weren't like about your life because you weren't off like solving mysteries, right? Like, so
Yeah, that's very true. Um, so for those people in the room that aspire to pivot and have a second coming in their life and want to write, what advice do you have for them?
I would say You have to write. If you want to write, you have to write. I mean, I wanted to write for a long time, but I didn't write. And until you write,
Hard
you
to make a
can't
story.
write. Like you have to sit and you have to write. And also, I think it's really having a community is really helpful. It's important. I mean, I wouldn't have started writing if I hadn't taken a class. And there are so many classes you can take online now, that like because there's all these Zoom classes and stuff. You
Yeah.
could take a class in New York City, and you can take a class through all these different things and take them online. Um, and then I just think it's really, for me, the biggest thing that was hard to overcome was just to like think of myself as a writer and to really take myself seriously, because I feel like it's really easy to sit and you have 5 pages, right? And like you wrote 5 pages, but you feel like, is that a book? Like, will it ever be a book? Like, I don't, but you have to take it seriously. If you don't take it seriously, nobody else is going to take it seriously. And if you really feel like you can do it, you can do it. Every book starts with 1 page, 1 sentence. So you just have to keep going.
That's awesome. Just do it. Just
So,
do it. Just start.
Yeah.
so Lynda, we are huge fans of yours, and we want to know what's next.
Oh my gosh, I'm having such a problem with my next book, but I'm getting closer.
Those are the best books, though.
I'm really behind. Like I should have my next book by now. Like it should be halfway done, and it is not at all. But it's going to be a very bookish book. All I can say really now is I think it starts with it's a woman who is having a recurring dream for her whole life, and she dreams of a book, and it is an unusual book, and a woman is holding it in this dream, and the woman tells her that this is the book that saved her life. And when the woman says that, whispers that, then she wakes up. And so this woman, her name is Maxine, the main character, and Maxine, she spends her life searching for this book that she's not really sure if it's real, not really sure what it means to her, but she knows that it's like she knows that she'll know it when she sees it, and that it's going to help her sort of figure out who she is, because she is lost in her life and doesn't know who she is.
Wow. A
And
book of
yeah.
knowledge.
Yeah, well, I mean, self-knowledge, but
Mhm.
yeah. But it's gonna be historical. There's a lot of historical things. She grows up in the 50s.
Oh, okay.
And there's a lot of fun
Okay.
things. Yeah. Yeah, there are a lot of fun things. There's a lot of like fun bookish things. And I don't know.
Well,
I
we
can't really
like
talk
all
about
that.
it. Yeah, it's hard to
Mhm.
talk. It's hard to talk about it because it's not like fully formed yet.
Oh, that's
So does the dream feel like a magical vibe in the story, or are you going magical again, or maybe a
Not
little
with the
bit?
dream. The dream is
Okay.
just a dream, but
Just
of
a
course,
dream.
dreams are magical feeling. Dreams are like wispy. It's
Yeah.
but there are just a lot of it's just hard to talk about. But Maxine has a sort of special ability having to do with books. So
Oh.
it's a slightly magically realism-y
Well,
kind of
now you've got us all curious and excited.
We're
When,
hooked. We're hooked.
what is the timeline for this book? Like a year
I
from
don't
now,
know.
probably?
I mean, I have to really get it going. I have to get it going. I'm hoping I can finish it by the summer,
Yeah.
maybe.
Mhm.
But yeah.
It's
I'll be able
probably
to
tough.
talk
Are you
more about
touring
it.
right now?
What?
Are you on tour right now? So you're
I'm
not really
touring
able to
now.
write?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
touring now, and then my daughter's getting married in January. So
Oh,
like it's really, really busy. We
yeah.
just had a cake tasting, and there was not enough cake. They gave us such tiny, small pieces of cake.
You're like, where's the cake? How
You
am I
taste-
supposed to pick a
You
cake?
taste 4 kinds of cake and 12 kinds of filling, and it was so tiny. It was so delicious, but so you had one, but I was so sad. I just wanted more cake. My husband couldn't come because he was on a plane, and
So you're like,
my
can I have his bites?
no, my daughter and her fiance came, and of course, and so we were all eating the cake, and my husband said to me, "Can you bring a container and like take some cake with you?" And I was like, "They're gonna think I'm like so like I'm not a classy person. I can't show up with Tupperware to the cake place." But I told the cake people that, thinking maybe they would give me some cake to
Right.
go, but they didn't.
Dude, well, don't use that cake company then. I would just
No,
be
no,
like,
it
"You
was
didn't
really
give me
good
enough
cake. No, it was really good cake, but I just thought we would be tasting bigger pieces.
Right.
I was envisioning having like 12 pieces, full-size pieces of cake.
Yeah, no, here's your
Apparently that
little
makes people
square.
sick or something.
Well, those people are crazy.
I know.
Amateurs.
I know.
Rookies. Oh, that's hilarious. Um, oh my goodness. Pam says her great aunt did that, brought containers. I love that. That is hilarious.
That's awesome.
Okay.
They would like dump the pickles into the containers and then ask for another round of pickles or
Oh my
like dump the
God.
bread.
Oh
It
my
was
God,
hilarious.
that's so funny.
They were probably the ones that had sugar packets in their purse. They would just take.
My mom
And
cannot
tea
go into
bags.
Starbucks without taking all of their sugar. I'm like,
Really?
Mom, we
That's
have
so
sugar
funny.
at home. I'm dying right now.
Oh my God. My mom had this friend, Judy, and Judy's mother was this woman named Dora. And Judy's husband used to tell this story about how once he took Dora to a hotel for some family function, and she tried to take the shower curtain because she liked it.
Pay for this room. That is my shower curtain.
He knocked and she was taking down the shower curtain.
Okay, that is amazing. Oh, these are the stories I love.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay, Janie, I feel like you have to ask your question because, you have that passion together. You have that history. Are you on here? Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Well, I just, I'm a retired attorney, and I just always feel so bad when people say they hated being attorneys because I loved it. So I'm just wondering if you're ever going to put all that knowledge to work and maybe write a book where the attorney is the main character.
yeah. Well, in The Matchmaker's Gift, Abby's an attorney. Like one of the main characters is an attorney. She's a divorce
Oh, okay.
attorney. So
All right.
yeah, so you should definitely
Go
read
read,
that.
go read that one.
Yeah,
Okay.
you should definitely read that. She's a divorce attorney. And also my daughter is in law school. The one thing that I begged her to never do, I told her she could be anything she wanted when she grew up
Except
she
a lawyer.
loves it. Except a lawyer, but she loves it. She loves law school. She loved her summer job. Like she loves it. So I don't, I think if you love it, you love it. It was not for me, but she loves it. So
Maybe it's the type of attorney. I mean, there's, difference
I
in.
I don't know. I think I just wanted to read poetry and like I just
That sounds
I don't
great.
know.
Well, what area of law were you practicing? I'm just curious.
I was a trust and estates lawyer, which was
Oh,
the
boo,
only
no,
kind that
no, no.
I could handle. Because
Yeah,
I
no.
thought that was very personal, and
Well, that's boring.
well, no, I liked the drama. No, it wasn't boring to me. There was like
Oh.
serious drama, like the families would fight and like be
Oh,
fighting over the will. Like it was interesting. That part I
Oh.
liked. I just didn't like the tax law,
right.
like all the stuff that goes with it.
Right.
The legal part I didn't like.
Right. Right. You just want the fun writing and the drama of the family. You could probably write a whole story about some of that stuff. Holy cow.
Yeah,
You probably
maybe,
have some
yeah,
good fodder
maybe
there.
one day. Yeah, maybe one day. I saw a lot of things.
Oh my goodness. Well, for those people that have not seen you in person yet, where are you next? How can they find you? All that
Yes,
kind of stuff.
So definitely go to my website, which is lindacohenloigman.com. It's just my full name.com. And I have an events page there, but I have to finish updating the November events. But and also I have a little graphic pinned to the top of my Instagram, which is just L Loigman, and that says where I am. And I post on Instagram all the time. I'm on Facebook too. Lynda Cohen Loigman on Facebook. But next week this is my hardest week. So because I've been flitting around, but I always come home. But tomorrow I'm going to DC. So I have DC for 2 days and then Maryland and then Dallas.
Oh.
So if anybody's in Dallas,
Wait, shut up. You're going to Dallas? When are you going to Dallas?
I'm going to be in Dallas on Friday.
This Friday?
Yes.
I'm gonna have to
Dallas
talk to
JCC.
you.
I
live in Waco, but it's an hour and a half. I mean, it's not like
that's
it's
far.
far.
Yeah, that's far. That's far.
It's
But
not too far
I'm
to
gonna
come
be-
hug an author that
If
I
you
love.
want to come, you should come.
Of
I'm going to
course.
be with Jean Meltzer in Maryland and at Politics and Prose in DC. And then I'm actually going to talk the second day in DC at my friend's mother's retirement home.
Oh, that's lovely.
Super fun.
Okay, that would be amazing.
It's going to be really fun.
Have
Yeah.
they read the book?
Yeah, I think they're all like reading it now, like as we speak.
Oh my goodness.
It's really fun.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. Okay, before you go, I want to make sure that we get a picture of everybody. So everybody go grab your books. At the end, we like to have a little picture with our authors
Yay, that's so cute.
and the books. So grab your books if you are, not on, hop on. Some people have their
You guys are so great.
videos off.
So
So grab
sweet.
the books. And
Yay.
Missy does a better job of taking photos than I do, but I try to take them too. But so we'll get these. Anyone else want to take a photo? Go ahead. All right, you guys ready? 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 6. Yay! All right. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you guys so much for reading. I so appreciate it. Like it's so kind and thank you. I really
Well, this was a fun one. We read some heavy historical fiction, so it was really fun to read just a hopeful, uplifting novel. So we appreciate your time and finding out all about how you write, and we can't wait for the bookish book that's next.
Oh my goodness. Okay, you guys will be the first to know.
I'll just start hounding you about a year from now. So,
Yeah.
how's that
Yeah.
book coming?
Please do, because I need to be hounded for sure.
All right. Well, thank you so
Great.
much.
Good
Have a
night,
good
everybody.
Thank you, Linda.
Bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody, for
Thank you.
joining us. If you want to